Pria Acharya, and so happy to have you here, Priya. In part one, we were discussing the significance of mindfulness, and this is what I'm learning from you, that mindfulness is almost like a walking, living meditation. You are paying attention to your body, for example. So you said, okay, in any given moment, it's awareness around how I feel. And what is my body doing right now? Because maybe your heart might be beating, or you're having trouble breathing, or, I've got a tingle in my legs, or because for years I was disconnected from my body, and maybe in some ways I still am, and it's just so important because we're not separate. So, okay. So mindfulness is really a consciousness on how you feel, how you think, what your body is doing, and maybe, and it's all in the moment, and maybe it's about also your values, like, well, if you're arguing with someone, well, what's the disconnect in values? Maybe you are being compassionate at that moment and they are not, or something like that. That is also part of mindfulness, I think. How well did I summarize that? What else could you add?
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I think sometimes what you were saying around a potential argument, I think we can get so lost, right, on some kind of agenda, like I need to be right, I need to win this argument. But I think what you said is a good example. I think mindfulness helps us to kind of pull away, potentially, see what's happening from a bigger picture, to see like, oh, am I being compassionate? Am I creating connection? What is it that I ultimately want here? Maybe it's connection with this individual versus being right. And how do I achieve that? And so I think mindfulness helps to ground us in these core principles that go above and beyond what our potentially egoic self may want. Just I need to be right.
And I was also thinking, as you were speaking, that mindfulness includes stepping back for a moment and trying to understand the other person's point of view, maybe pick up on their feelings, and have an open-hearted conversation with them about their feelings, so they don't feel shut out, because it's a two-way street with someone, isn't it?
I think so. I think mindfulness helps us to reach another from a heart-centered place. It's like two hearts coming together. Like I'm trying to,
love it.
It's not my mind trying to reach your mind. It's my heart trying to reach your heart. And I think if we wanted to go delve deeper into that, we could say, it's more our inner child, which I think is the part of us that's focused on sort of our wants and needs, right? Is the heart-centered place, is trying to reach your inner child, the one that's also heart-centered. And so I think that goes so much beyond that intellectual layer, right? To be about, like, ultimately, I think we're just wanting to connect. And so I think it helps, mindfulness helps us to get to that layer better.
And I forgot to introduce Bear, because your dog Bear was in the room before we started the interview, and so I wanted to welcome Bear to our program. And I don't think Raj knows this about me, but I do a fair amount of animal communication. And boy, do you have to be mindful when you're communicating with animals. It's incredible. And for some reason on the planet, lately, I'm just getting flooded with requests for animal communication, whether the animal is sick or just not behaving well, or whatever the case may be. So I find that really interesting. But listen, I want to move into another topic here, because I just introduced Bear, and it's about um, being mindful of veganism, animal advocacy, oppression of animals, domination of animals by humans, and how can we use mindfulness to make people aware of the beauty of animals and why we shouldn't eat them? Let's be honest. Yeah. What would you say?
Yeah, I think, part of anything begins with awareness, right? Like when we think
Yeah.
of any change, how did we make that change? It always started with awareness, right? Like I'm becoming aware of a situation, a potential problem, and then we get to a place of acceptance of like, yeah, I accept this is a problem. I mean, even we think of like potential divorce, right? How did that happen? Awareness. And then you go from there to accepting that this is a problem. And then you can go to like addressing it. And I think the same thing applies with our connection with animals is when we can become more aware of ourselves, our environment, it also helps us to become aware of others more, right? It's hard to separate that. You could say the same thing about compassion, right? The more that you meditate on self-compassion, you can't separate that from experiencing more compassion for others. It always begins with us. And I believe that others includes all sentient beings. And so animals as well. And so I think with awareness, with mindfulness, the more that we practice it, it allows us to extend that consciousness and awareness to be able to see animals more fully, more clearly. I think we notice more of their sentience through mindfulness. And when you notice more sentience, I think, makes it more complicated to consider consuming them, to consider that you would be okay with their harm and to consume them as meals.
Yeah, and part of that sentience, and for me, is to really understand that animals have feelings.
Correct.
One story I love to share is of, and it's written in one of the books I have, is many cows were being taken to the slaughterhouse. So they were in a truck, and one of the cows inside the truck had a partner outside the truck, and the male outside the truck was not taken to slaughter. And he was so upset. The truck wasn't even moving yet, and he was doing his best. He was using his horns to try and open the door of the truck to release the door so that his female partner would not be taken to slaughter. I just bawled my eyes out. This male was wanting to save his wife, if you will. So the feelings, he must have been, and then he couldn't save her. He couldn't get the door open. So she was taken to slaughter, and he lost, the animal person that he loved the most. So makes you sad even thinking about that, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, you're reminding me of the experiences that I've had with cows and calves when I was in India in 2022, December to January of 23. And I visited various cattle farms. And so I got to experience the whole maternal child bond, with calves moving to call their babies, and the babies knew exactly who was their mom, and they had that bond and connection. I followed a calf running to mom to go nurse, and then and experiencing all of the stealing of the milk, pulling the calf away from mom to steal the milk for humans. So I watched all of that. and the calves, being tied away. One was, under a temple in a dungeon. And this whole combination, the whole dichotomy with religion and the way the calves are treated, the dairy consumption, and India, there is so much paradox, and right, the lack of awareness. I was standing next to a calf across from a temple, and the calf was suckling on dangling cloth, right? It was just what was available to nurse on, right? And I saw a worshiper come give some stalks to cows just next to the calves, not even noticing what I'm experiencing here. This calf is suckling on cloth. He didn't even look, a few feet to notice this is suffering, right? You're going to go a few feet to go worship in that temple, but you're not noticing, or you're not conscious and aware of the suffering right in front of you, right? How do you justify that? How do you justify that? It's just going through the motions, right? I'm giving this cat the stall because I'm supposed to. I'm doing good. I'm going to give this to the cat, and then I'm going to go worship, and then I'm going to go have a whole bunch of dairy, right? They're going to have the chai with the milk, the dahi, all the dairy desserts. So there's this whole disconnection, right? So where is the mindfulness, right? In this, where is the awareness? Like it was right in front of them. And another time the calves were suckling on metal, at another facility, and there was a deceased calf at the entrance, and so there's just all this I think lack of consciousness, going through emotions of how you think you're supposed to live life and the way you've lived it, but not really seeing, right?
So, boy, that was an excellent example of how mindfulness can really help us to be more noble human beings and better human beings by paying attention, right, to our feelings and the feelings of the animal, or if we're corporate leaders, paying attention to the feelings of our people, and not dominating them, but getting them involved and so on. So, Pria, you've set a wonderful example here today for all of our viewers to move into mindfulness, and we're going to put your contact information on top of the video. So those of you who are watching, we encourage you to contact Pria, and she will teach you to be more mindful. And if you are already practicing it, because of her depth of experience, I'm sure she's going to teach you a lot more. So Pria, thank you. Thank you for being here with us today. God bless you.